The 3 moons of Zalara cast an eerie glow over the crystalline towers of the capital city Luminara, where High Commander Zaria paced nervously in her private chambers. She had received word that a human vessel had entered their system. This was unprecedented. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as a primitive, yet strangely resilient species, but they rarely ventured this far into Vexarian space. Commander Zaria smoothed her iridescent scales and adjusted her ceremonial armor. The council would be gathering soon to discuss this unexpected development, and as the youngest commander in Vexarian history, she needed to make a strong impression. Zaria whispered to herself, a reminder of her duty to the Vexarian Empire. Their civilization had ruled this sector for 10,000 cycles. Their technology was unmatched, their warriors undefeated. Yet these humans, these soft-skinned creatures without scales or proper defenses, had somehow managed to defeat the Krull Dominion, a feat no other species had accomplished. The door chimed softly and Lieutenant Nixa entered with a data crystal. Lieutenant Nixa bowed respectfully, her silver scales reflecting the ambient light of the chamber. "High Commander, I have the intelligence report." On the human vessel, Zaria took the crystal and inserted it into her neural interface. Images and data flooded her mind. A small human craft. Not a warship. A diplomatic vessel. Only 5 humans aboard. 4 males. And 1 female. The female appeared to be their leader. How curious. Zaria thought the Vexarians had a matriarchal society, but intelligence suggested most human governments were dominated by males. Yet here was a human female leading an important mission. "Summon the council immediately," Zaria ordered. "We must prepare for their arrival." 3 hours later. Zaria stood in the grand reception hall of the Imperial Palace. The marble floors gleamed with an inner light, and massive columns carved from single crystals supported the vaulted ceiling. The council members arranged themselves in a semicircle, their ceremonial armor glittering with precious gems denoting their rank and accomplishments. The massive doors slid open silently, and the human delegation entered. 4 males in identical blue uniforms flanked a single female. She wore a similar uniform but with additional insignia that marked her as their leader. She moved with confidence, her chin held high. Her gaze steady, Zaria felt a flutter of admiration. This human showed no fear despite being surrounded by Vexarian warriors who towered over her by at least 2 feet. "Greetings, I am Ambassador Grace Miller of Earth. I bring peaceful greetings from the United Earth Alliance." The human spoke, her voice clear and strong. Zaria stepped forward. "I am High Commander Zaria of the Vexarian Empire. Welcome to Zalara." "Ambassador Miller." The formal introductions continued as protocol demanded. The council members were introduced one by one. Each acknowledged the human delegation, with varying degrees of interest or disdain. Zaria noticed that Ambassador Miller maintained perfect composure throughout, studying each council member carefully. When the formalities concluded, Zaria invited the ambassador to a private meeting chamber. The other humans and council members would be entertained elsewhere while the 2 leaders spoke. Grace Miller sat across from Zaria at a table carved from rare blue crystal. The human accepted a glass of Vexarian nectar, but Zaria noticed she merely pretended to sip it. A wise precaution. "Commander Zaria." "I will speak plainly," Grace said. "The rumors of your conflict with the Drakari Collective have reached Earth. We have also had encounters with the Drakari. They raided 3 of our colony worlds." Zaria hissed softly. The Drakari were a violent species known for their brutality. They had been encroaching on Vexarian territory for decades, and now they threatened humans as well. "We survived." Ambassador Grace continued. "We fought them off, but at great cost. The Drakari have technology that nearly matches your own, yet we defeated them with inferior ships and weapons." How? Zaria asked, unable to hide her curiosity. Grace smiled. "The Drakari rely too heavily on their technology. They lack adaptability, the ability to think beyond their programming. We used unconventional tactics, changing our strategies constantly. They could not predict our movements." Zaria leaned forward, fascinated. This confirmed what their intelligence had suggested about humans, their unpredictability, their strange creativity. It was both their greatest weakness and their greatest strength. "We propose an alliance," Commander Zaria Grace said. "We know the Drakari are massing for a major offensive. They plan to attack both our peoples. We can help each other." Zaria considered this proposal carefully. An alliance with humans was unprecedented. Many on the council would oppose it. Humans were considered barely civilized by Vexarian standards, yet they had demonstrated remarkable abilities. "What could you possibly offer us?" Ambassador Zaria asked. "The Vexarian Empire has stood for millennia. Our technology is far superior to yours." Grace smiled again and removed a small device from her pocket. She placed it on the table where it projected a holographic display of a battle formation. Zaria recognized Drakari warships in a standard attack configuration. "Watch this," Grace said. The hologram shifted, showing a much smaller fleet of human vessels. The simulation began. The Drakari attacked in formation as expected, but the human ships moved in ways Zaria had never seen, breaking formation, dispersing, regrouping in seemingly random patterns. The Drakari could not adapt. Their programming failed them. Within minutes, the simulation showed the Drakari fleet in disarray. This was an actual battle from 6 months ago. Grace explained. "Our tactics, our unpredictability. These are what we offer you, Commander. Along with our courage and determination." For 3 days, negotiations continued. The council was divided. Some saw the potential benefits of an alliance. Others feared association with a lesser species would diminish their standing. Grace Miller impressed many with her intelligence and diplomatic skill, but others remained skeptical. The 4th day, alarm sirens blared throughout the city. A Drakari scout ship had been detected on the edge of the system. The council convened immediately along with Grace Miller. The Vexarian tactical officer reported the Drakari vessel was attempting to scan their defenses, likely in preparation for a larger attack. "Let me help," Grace offered. "My communications officer, Kelly Martinez, has developed a method to corrupt their scanning technology." Commander Zaria hesitated, then nodded. "Show us." A human female with warm brown skin and determined eyes stepped forward. She interfaced her equipment with the Vexarian systems, working quickly with quiet confidence. While the council watched with skepticism, Kelly Martinez implemented her program. The Drakari scanner failed catastrophically. The scout ship lost power and drifted helplessly in space. The council chambers erupted in astonished murmurs. Even the most skeptical members could not deny the effectiveness of the human technology. Within hours, the alliance was formalized. Grace Miller and Commander Zaria signed the historic document that united their peoples against the Drakari threat. As they stood on the palace balcony overlooking the gleaming city of Luminara, Zaria turned to Grace Miller. "You are not what I expected. Ambassador, your people are full of surprises." Grace smiled. "The universe is vast." Commander Zaria, sometimes the most unlikely allies proved to be the strongest. 2 weeks passed and the human delegation had integrated themselves into Vexarian military planning. Kelly Martinez worked closely with Vexarian technicians improving defensive systems, while Grace Miller attended strategic meetings with Zaria, and the council intelligence reports indicated a large Drakari fleet was gathering near the Zephyrus Nebula, only 2 light years from Zilara. The Vexarians prepared for war, their massive battleships moving into defensive positions around their homeworld. Grace suggested a bold plan. Rather than wait for the Drakari attack, they should strike first, using a small team to infiltrate the Drakari command ship and disable their coordination network. The Drakari operated as a hive mind in battle. Their ships were controlled by a central intelligence located on their flagship. The plan was risky, perhaps even suicidal, but it offered their best chance for victory. The council reluctantly approved. A joint strike team was assembled. 6 Vexarian warriors and 3 humans. 2 of the humans were males with military specialties. The third was Samantha Reed, a human female with expertise in Drakari systems. Commander Zaria insisted on leading the mission herself. Despite protests from the council, she would not be dissuaded. This alliance was her responsibility, the mission her duty. The strike team departed aboard a modified Vexarian stealth vessel. Their ship was small, fast, and nearly undetectable to Drakari sensors. They approached the massive Drakari fleet hiding in the radiation shadow of a rogue planet. Zarya observed the humans during the journey. They showed none of the fear she expected. Their calm determination impressed her, especially Samantha Reed. The human female spent hours studying Drakari ship schematics, memorizing pathways and access points. "Commander, may I ask you something?" Samantha said quietly as they prepared their equipment for the mission. Zarya nodded. "Why? Did your people never develop artificial intelligence? Your technology is far more advanced than ours, yet you rely on biological neural networks rather than synthetic ones." Zarya considered the question. "We tried once, long ago. Our ancestors created thinking machines, but these machines lacked something essential. They could not appreciate beauty or understand sacrifice. They were efficient, but soulless. The experiment was abandoned." Samantha nodded thoughtfully. "Interesting. We had similar experiences. Our early AI systems were dangerous, unpredictable. They lacked empathy. We found a better path integrating biological components with technology, rather than replacing one with the other." Their conversation was interrupted as the ship sensors detected an opening in the Drakari defense grid. The time had come. The strike team boarded the Drakari command ship through an unused maintenance airlock. The massive vessel resembled a living organism more than a ship. Its corridors pulsed with bioluminescent light. Its walls seemed to breathe. Zarya led the way, followed by her Vexarian warriors. The humans brought up the rear with Samantha, guiding them through the labyrinthine passages. They encountered minimal resistance. The Drakari were focused outward, preparing for their assault on Zalara. They reached a massive chamber at the heart of the ship. A pulsating crystalline structure dominated the center, surrounded by control panels and monitoring stations. This was the central coordination hub, so brain of the Drakari fleet. 2 Drakari technicians were present. They were tall, spindly creatures with multiple limbs and compound eyes. They turned in surprise as the strike team entered. The Vexarian warriors dispatched them quickly and silently. Samantha rushed to the main control panel. Her fingers flew across the alien interface. She had studied Drakari technology for years, preparing for a moment like this. The other humans secured the room while Zarya posted guards at the entrances. The Drakari will know something is wrong soon, Samantha said without looking up. "I need 5 minutes to upload the virus. It will disable their network and leave their ships vulnerable." Zarya nodded. "Keep working. We will defend you." The prediction proved accurate. Within moments, alarms blared throughout the ship. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor as Drakari soldiers approached. Zarya positioned her warriors at the entrance. The humans joined them, weapons ready. The first wave of Drakari attacked with mindless determination. They were physically weak individually but overwhelming in numbers. The battle in the corridor was fierce. The Vexarian warriors fought with practiced precision, their energy blades slicing through Drakari soldiers. The humans fought differently, using improvised tactics and unexpected movements. Their weapons were less advanced, but they used them with deadly efficiency. Zarya found herself fighting alongside one of the human males. He moved with surprising speed for such a seemingly fragile creature. When a Drakari soldier flanked Zarya, the human threw himself into its path, taking a wound that would have killed Zarya. "Why would you do that?" Zarya demanded as she dispatched the Drakari soldier. The human grimaced through his pain. "The alliance only works if we protect each other." "Commander." Another wave of Drakari approached from a different corridor. The strike team was being surrounded, almost done. Samantha called from inside the control room. "Just another minute." Zarya made a decision. "Fall back to the control room," she ordered. "We defend from there." The team retreated inside, sealing the heavy doors behind them. It would not hold the Drakari for long, but perhaps long enough. The wounded human leaned against a wall, his face pale from blood loss. The other human male attended to him while Zarya and her warriors prepared for the final stand. "Done," Samantha announced. "The virus is uploaded. All Drakari ships will lose coordination in 30 seconds. A thunderous boom echoed as the Drakari began breaching the door. "Now we must escape," Zarya said. "But the way back to our ship is blocked." I have another idea, Samantha said. She pointed to a schematic on her device. There are escape pods 2 levels down. If we can reach them, it was a desperate plan, but their only hope. Zaria nodded. Lead the way, the doors burst open as they accessed an emergency shaft in the floor. The Drakari poured into the room as the last team member descended. Zaria sealed the shaft behind them, buying precious seconds. They moved quickly through maintenance tunnels rarely used by the Drakari. They could hear the chaos spreading throughout the ship as systems failed and coordination collapsed. The virus was working. They reached the escape pod bay and found it unguarded. The Drakari were too busy trying to regain control of their fleet. Samantha quickly programmed the nearest pod while Zaria helped the injured human inside. The pod launched moments later, blasting away from the massive Drakari vessel. Through the viewport, they could see the enemy fleet in disarray. Ships drifted aimlessly, some colliding with each other. Others fired randomly into space. The Vexarian fleet, accompanied by human vessels, attacked with precision. The Drakari had no defense without their central coordination. Their superior numbers meant nothing against the organized assault. The escape pod was cramped, designed for Drakari physiology, not Vexarians or humans. They were pressed together uncomfortably, but no one complained. They had succeeded against impossible odds. A Vexarian cruiser retrieved them hours later. As they boarded, Zaria was greeted by Grace Miller. The ambassador embraced Samantha briefly, a human gesture of relief and affection. You did it, Grace said. Our combined fleet is routing the Drakari. They retreat. In disorder. This victory will echo across the galaxy, Zaria nodded. Feeling a strange mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration, the wounded human was taken to the medical bay, while the rest of the team received a hero's welcome. In the following days, news of the victory spread throughout Vexarian space. The alliance with humans, which had been controversial, was now celebrated. The council, which had been divided, now unanimously supported. Strengthening ties with Earth, Zaria found herself spending more time with the humans, particularly Samantha Reed. The human female fascinated her. Their different perspectives and approaches to problems complemented each other. In battle planning sessions, Samantha often saw possibilities. Zaria missed one evening as they walked through the floating gardens of Luminara. Zaria asked the question that had been on her mind since the mission. Why did you volunteer for such a dangerous assignment, Samantha? The odds of survival were minimal. Samantha looked up at the 3 moons of Zalara before answering. On Earth, we have a saying, the greatest risk brings the greatest reward. This alliance between our peoples could change the course of galactic history. That possibility was worth any risk, Zaria considered. The humans' capacity for hope continued to surprise her. Their willingness to sacrifice for potential futures that might never come to pass. It seemed irrational, yet powerful. The Drakari were not defeated entirely. Their surviving ships had retreated to their home system. Intelligence suggested they were regrouping, preparing for another assault. This time they would be more cautious. They would adapt. The alliance needed to press their advantage. Grace Miller argued for a joint expedition to the Drakari homeworld. Not to destroy but to negotiate. The Drakari were intelligent beings despite their aggression. Perhaps peace was possible. Many on the council opposed this plan. The Drakari had been enemies of the Vexarians for generations. They could not be trusted, but Grace was persuasive. The cycle of war had continued for too long. Perhaps a new approach was needed. Zaria found herself supporting Grace. The human had earned her trust, and the traditional Vexarian approach of overwhelming force had never brought lasting peace with the Drakari. Perhaps the human way, diplomacy backed by strength, deserved a chance. The council eventually agreed to a diplomatic mission. A Vexarian battlecruiser would carry a joint delegation to the edge of Drakari space. They would broadcast peace offerings while maintaining defensive capabilities. Grace Miller would lead the human contingent while Zaria represented the Vexarians. Samantha Reed joined them as a technical advisor. Her knowledge of Drakari systems would be valuable. The massive Vexarian cruiser Stellar Spear departed with an escort of smaller vessels. They traveled in silence through the void between stars. The mission was classified, known only to the highest levels of both governments. During the journey, Zarya observed the humans closely. Their adaptability continued. To impress her, they adjusted to Vexarian food gravity and customs with remarkable ease. Grace Miller learned key phrases in the Vexarian language, while Samantha studied Vexarian engineering with fascination. 2 weeks into their journey, they received an unexpected transmission from a nearby star system. It was a distress signal from a small mining colony. The message was fragmented, but clear enough Drakari raiders had attacked. The Stellar Spear was the closest military vessel Zarya faced a difficult choice: respond to the distress call and potentially jeopardize their diplomatic mission, or stay on course and abandon the colonists. Grace Miller joined Zarya on the bridge as she deliberated. "What will you do?" Commander Grace asked. Zarya gestured to the tactical display. "The colony is small, barely 50 inhabitants. Responding would delay our mission by at least 3 days. The Drakari might interpret our arrival at their borders as an act of aggression if we arrive with weapons recently fired. What would you do?" Ambassador Zarya asked, curious about the human perspective. Grace considered the question, then answered without hesitation. "I would help them. Every life matters, Commander. Even if it complicates our mission, we cannot ignore those in need. This is what separates us from the Drakari." Zarya made her decision. "Alter course for the colony," she ordered. "Maximum speed. Prepare combat teams." The Stellar Spear arrived at the mining colony 14 hours later. They found a scene of destruction. The colony, built into the side of an asteroid, had been severely damaged. Life support systems were failing. Several buildings had been breached, exposing them to vacuum scans detected survivors huddled in a sealed emergency shelter. There, air would run out in hours. The Drakari raiders were gone, having taken what they wanted and left the colonists to die. Zarya organized rescue teams. Human and Vexarian engineers worked side by side to restore critical systems while medical personnel attended to the injured. One of the rescue team leaders was Amy Wilson, a human female with expertise in emergency medicine. The colonists were a mix of species united by their frontier spirit. They were shocked to see humans and Vexarians working together. News of the alliance had not reached this remote outpost. A young Vexarian colonist approached Zarya as she supervised repairs. "My family and I would have died if you had not come," she said. Her scales were dull from lack of proper nutrition, and her voice trembled. "I never thought to see humans helping Vexarians. This is the future we hope to build," Zarya replied. "One where all intelligent species work together for mutual benefit." The colonists were evacuated to the Stellar Spear while their habitat was repaired. The ship was not designed for civilian passengers, but accommodations were made. The humans showed particular kindness to the young and injured, ensuring they had comfortable places to rest and adequate food. Amy Wilson worked tirelessly in the medical bay, treating injuries with both Vexarian and human techniques. When Zarya checked on progress, she found Amy teaching Vexarian medical staff about human emergency procedures. They learned quickly. Amy commented, noticing, "Zarya, their techniques are more advanced than ours in many ways, but they never considered some of our approaches. Sometimes simpler is better, especially in field conditions." Once the colony was stabilized and repairs completed, the Stellar Spear resumed its journey toward Drakari space. The delay had cost them precious time, but the crew morale was higher. The rescue had united humans and Vexarians in common purpose. 3 days later, they reached the border of Drakari territory. A heavily armed patrol ship approached immediately, its weapons powered and ready. The diplomatic mission faced its first test. Grace Miller broadcast a message of peace in the Drakari language, offering dialogue and cooperation instead of continued conflict. The message played on repeat for hours with no response. The Drakari patrol ship maintained its position, watching, evaluating, perhaps reporting to higher authorities. Tension on the Stellar Spear increased as they waited. Finally, a response came, not from the patrol ship but from deeper in Drakari space. A larger vessel approached, its design unlike any Drakari ship Zarya had seen before. Scans indicated minimal weapons, but powerful shields. The newcomer positioned itself between the Stellar Spear and the Drakari patrol ship, then transmitted a message in perfect Vexarian. I am Overseer Krell of the Drakari Collective. We have received your transmission and find it curious. Vexarians seeking peace is unprecedented. Humans allying with Vexarians, even more so. We agreed to preliminary discussions. Grace and Zarya exchanged glances. This was more than they had hoped for. A diplomatic meeting was arranged aboard a neutral station at the edge of Drakari space. Security protocols were established. Both sides would bring limited personnel and weapons. The neutral station was an ancient structure built by a long-vanished civilization. It hung in space at the precise boundary between Drakari and Vexarian-claimed territories. Its massive stone halls had hosted negotiations between countless species. Over millennia, Zarya led a team of 6 Vexarians, while Grace brought 3 humans, including Samantha Reed. They were met by Overseer Krell and 5 Drakari officials. The Overseer was tall even for a Drakari, with iridescent compound eyes and multiple limbs that moved with unsettling precision. The negotiations began formally, with each side stating grievances and demands. The Drakari claimed certain territories as historically theirs. The Vexarians disputed these claims, citing ancient treaties. The discussions were tense but remained civil, a remarkable achievement given the centuries of conflict between the species. During a recess, Grace approached Zarya with an observation. The Drakari are different than our intelligence suggested. They seem more individualistic, less like a hive mind. And Overseer Krell, the way he speaks, the cultural references, he understands us too well. Zarya had noticed the same anomalies. Something had changed within Drakari society. She suspected the virus that Samantha had uploaded to their command ship had done more than disrupt their fleet coordination. Perhaps it had affected their neural network in unexpected ways. When negotiations resumed, Zarya addressed Overseer Krell directly. You are not like the Drakari we have fought for generations. Your speech patterns, your behaviors have changed. Why? The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to the Overseer. He remained still for a long moment. Then spoke. You are perceptive, Commander Zarya. The Drakari Collective has indeed changed. The virus your team planted in our central coordination hub was meant to disrupt our fleet, but it did something far more profound. It introduced chaos into our neural network. For generations, our minds have been linked, following patterns established by our ancestors. Our thoughts were not our own. We were prisoners of programming. We never questioned because we could not imagine questioning. He turned to Samantha Reed. Your virus, human female. The randomness of its code, the unpredictability. It created gaps in our network. Through these gaps, some of us glimpsed freedom. For the first time in countless generations, we began to think as individuals, to question, to choose. This is why I am here, not as a representative of the old collective, but as the voice of the new Drakari, those who wish for change. The revelation stunned everyone in the chamber. The implications were enormous. A fundamental shift in Drakari society could transform the political landscape of the entire sector. Grace Miller recovered, first stepping forward to address the Overseer. Then there is hope for lasting peace. Not merely a temporary cessation of hostilities, but true cooperation. Krell inclined his head. Perhaps, Ambassador Miller, though not all Drakari embrace change. Many still cling to the old ways. They see individualism as corruption. They fight to restore the purity of the collective. These traditionalists control much of our military. They see you as responsible for what they consider a plague of chaos. They will not rest until the old order is restored. And you, Zarya asked, where do you stand in this conflict? I stand for freedom, Commander Zarya. Krell replied, the freedom to choose our own path, even if that path is uncertain. Those like me seek alliance with both your peoples. We need your protection while our movement grows stronger. The negotiations took on new urgency. A 3-way alliance between humans, Vexarians, and the new Drakari could reshape galactic politics. But it also risked full-scale war with the traditionalist Drakari. A war that would cost millions of lives for 3 days. They worked tirelessly, drafting agreements, establishing boundaries and protocols. Grace Miller proved an exceptional diplomat, finding compromise where Vexarians and Drakari saw only conflict. Samantha Reed worked with Krell to develop safeguards, preventing the traditionalists from reasserting control over free Drakari on the final day, as they prepared to sign. The historic treaty alarms blared throughout the station. A massive fleet of traditionalist Drakari vessels had appeared from hyperspace. They had discovered the negotiations and come to stop them by any means necessary. The station defenses were minimal. They had minutes at most before being overrun. Escape seemed impossible until Samantha made a startling suggestion. The station has ancient teleportation technology, she explained. Examining Krell. It appears dormant, but I believe we can reactivate it long enough for one transport. The energy signature in your neural patterns matches the activation frequency. Overseer. You could power the system. It would be dangerous. Krell warned. Possibly fatal. I would need to connect directly to the system. My neural energy would be drained. You would sacrifice yourself. Zaria asked, surprised for freedom. Yes. Krell answered without hesitation. Is that not what we are all fighting for? The right to choose our own fate. The decision was made. Krell would activate the teleportation system, sending the diplomats back to the stellar sphere. He would remain behind, facing certain death at the hands of the traditionalists as they prepared for transport. Grace Miller approached Krell. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten, she promised. The Alliance will honor your memory. Your people will know freedom. Krell connected himself to the ancient machinery, his body trembling as energy flowed through him. The teleportation chamber hummed with power, ancient symbols glowing on the walls. The last thing Zaria saw before the teleportation activated was Krell, standing tall as traditionalist Drakari forces breached the outer defenses. His compound eyes seemed to smile, though such an expression should be impossible for his species. They materialized aboard the stellar sphere moments later. The ship immediately jumped to hyperspace, barely escaping the traditionalist fleet. The treaty had been signed, the alliance formed, but at tremendous cost. 1 month later, Zaria stood in the Great Hall of Luminara. The chamber was filled with dignitaries from 3 civilizations, humans, Vexarians, and free Drakari, united in common cause. A memorial had been erected to Overseer Krell, his sacrifice commemorated in stone, and Light Grace Miller, now officially the first human ambassador to the Vexarian Empire, stood beside Zaria. The alliance they had forged faced tremendous challenges. The traditionalist Drakari remained a threat. Centuries of mistrust between species could not be erased overnight, but a beginning had been made, a foundation for a different future. A young Vexarian approached, timidly carrying a data crystal high commander. She said, bowing respectfully, "We discovered this in the ancient archives. It speaks of a prophecy, a time when 3 divided would become one whole, when chaos would bring order and enemies would become allies. It speaks of humans, though not by that name. It calls them the unexpected ones, those who change patterns." Grace smiled at the description. "It fits us rather well, does it not? Commander Humans have always excelled at disrupting the expected." Zaria nodded, looking out over the assembled representatives of 3 civilizations. The path ahead would not be easy, but with human unpredictability, Vexarian strength, and Drakari adaptability, they had a chance for something unprecedented, something better than any of them could achieve alone. As the formal ceremony began, Zaria thought of all that had happened since the human vessel first entered Vexarian space. Sometimes the greatest changes begin with the smallest steps. Sometimes the most unlikely allies become the strongest.